I have a lot of experience with managing property without that much equipment. And it was really born back in the day from not having enough money to have equipment. Back in the mid 90s, planting, I had an ATV, and that was it, a handheld spreader. It was one of those old cloth kind. And it did okay for me. I've learned to rent equipment instead of use equipment. For example, back then in 1995, my first food plot, I used a rototiller. It was terrible, terrible to use. It wasn't that effective, and I knew there were better ways. I want to tell you right now the minimum equipment that we need right here, and this minimum amount of equipment could be something for you, whether you manage 1 acre food plots, 5, 10, whether you have 40 acres, 200 acres. This equipment we have used and we can use to manage 15 acres of food plots, 300 acres of total land in 2 states, 18 acres of switchgrass, several acres of pollinator blends, all our stands, all our miles of trails. We could use this minimum equipment to get things done and get things planted. And it's a lot less than you think. Now, you could always step back and you go to a backpack sprayer and a handheld spreader. You can do a lot of damage with just those 2 items right there. And the one good thing around here is we do use chemicals. And I know there's comments, people don't use all this stuff, but we're surrounded by thousands and thousands of acres of ag land around here, and they use a lot of chemicals and a lot of pesticides, several times more than we use on our food plots. That being said, one of the things that is really important around here is soil conservation and to stop soil erosion. And so the more no-till that we can do, the better we can conserve soil. Do you know in the last 160 years, they've eroded several feet of topsoil around here that's basically gone down into the bottoms in the woods? So we're left to a point right now with the topsoil that's left. If they continue the deep tillage, chisel plowing, disking that they have for the last 160 years, then there will be no topsoil in 50 to 60 years. That's their estimation. It's gone down that much. So we have to do our part, and doing our part, if you're using no-till and you can't till repeatedly over and over again to rip up that weed base, then you have to use chemicals. It's a big balance. You have to look at all sides, including erosion. There's a reason the farmers around here, a lot of them are starting to move over towards no-till practices and equipment, but there's a reason they use chemicals. They want to get volume, they want to increase volume on their crops, and they do it for a living, and it means money. And they're doing this on thousands of acres, and you might have an acre or 2. You need to get the most out of those plantings. Bottom line, enough about that. The minimum equipment we need. I want to go over here and kind of see my son Sam in the background here. He's here for a week working, and he's starting to put redneck extension porches together right over here. So that's going to be, he's going to work with Wes to get those on this week, and we got some other projects for him, right, Sam? Yep. Some good stuff to do. You can see this little tractor we have right here. We use this for the brush hog. And we use it. We have a PTO mounted spreader. I believe it's right back here under our shelving for our seed company. But we use that, and that actually we use quite a bit because we spread fertilizer with it, and we spread our big seeds. The brush hog right here, brush hog switchgrass with it. This cool kinetic side-by-side. We have a Ranger, that's our work machine. We have a Kubota RTV out here. We use them for work. We use them year-round around the property. We don't need them. We have them. We don't have to have them. We love our side-by-sides because we do, Jen, how many family trips are we doing a year? I mean, we go out on the property, 75, 50.
Yes, so many.
I mean, that's part of our fun. When family and friends are over, we go on tours. But we don't need that stuff to actually manage what we do. The tractor's cool. We like it. We have miles of trails out here. But you know what? With our tractor, and with this brush hog right here, PTO mounted spreader, we could use as earthway. We don't have to use that. That's what I've done for years. There's one year I put 7,000 pounds of seed fertilizer lime through this alone. I think that might have been 2016. So, we use these things, and sometimes it's a lot of work, but it can be done. You don't need to spend a bunch of money on toys. This, for example, right here, we have several miles of trails that we brush hog. We really actively brush hog those about twice a year. To rent a tractor like this and go out and brush hog a few $100s at a pop, it's a lot cheaper than owning one of these. It really is. And so we could just rent that machine. Now we have 15 acres of food plots, but that's not counting the 7 acres that we plant in corn. We have someone come and do that for us. It's a big jump up, and I'm not saying someday we might not have a larger tractor because we want pallets to get, or forks to get pallets off trucks and semis for the seed company. We might do that, but we don't have to have that stuff. We can farm it out basically, get someone else to do it. We put water in the back here. You can see this water tank right here. We put that in the back of our side-by-sides. We have 11 water holes here, 4 over in Wisconsin. And we use that, and I've used it for years. But you know how I first used that? I used it by pulling it on the back of a pickup truck in a trailer. And that's how I used it. I used it by putting it in the back of the pickup truck. There was one time even getting water, I went to the car wash to fill about 150 gallons in there in the back of the pickup. I think it took $26 of quarters putting in over and over again. My hand got so tired holding the handle, I found some duct tape in the back of my truck, put it inside so that the handle was engaged the entire time, and that kept it open so I didn't have to sit there and squeeze it for the 35, 40 minutes, whatever it took to fill that with water from the pressure washer at the car wash. But we don't need to have these side-by-sides to put water. We can use a truck, we can use a trailer, and we can pull that around and get water to our water tank. So again, I want to talk about the minimum equipment we need. We'll get back to that earthway over here. This ATV, I bought this, it seems like maybe 2015, right around there, maybe 2016. It's an old one, Gen 2007, does that sound right?
Yeah, I think it's either 2007, 6, 7, 8,
something like that around there. But it cost me $3,400. And I'm not saying that's not a lot of money, but in the past I had a Honda Rancher. I think I bought that new for $3,000. I wish I still had that thing. It was 2-wheel drive. It turned on a dime and it was incredible for spraying. So you don't even need something that's 4-wheel drive like this. Now we've worked on this throughout the years to keep it going. It's going great right now. So we like having this. It's very nimble. 25-gallon tank back here. You get really good at spraying, but I've sprayed over 100 acres with this machine in just 1 year, 100 acres total with everything we were doing, multiple sprayings and locations, switchgrass, whatever it might be. 25 gallons can spray 2 acres at a time. So a lot of fill-ups, but it can be done. ATV, don't have to have something fancy. A lot of times I see people going out and buying an ATV and they're buying the latest and greatest, $10, $11, $12, $13,000 and spending a lot of money for it. This works out perfect. We have a sprayer back here with folding booms, and then this is a 4-foot Packer Max. I like this because we've used cheaper versions, cheaper manufacturers that didn't even last through the first cul-de-packing session. So this is something that's built for heavy duty. It lasts a long time. You fill it with water. That's what gives it its weight. You don't have those steel plates. But bottom line, pulling that behind this, we can perform all our buckwheat activities of smashing down our buckwheat and then going back, spraying at the same time. We fold these booms out. You crush 4 feet at a time, and you turn the sprayer on and off on every other pass. So really easy to spray. Again, it's just more time filling. We used to fill, we had to drive about 15 minutes down to the farmer's daughter's house, get some water, go back up. And even then, we'd come all the way from the UP in Michigan. We'd plant 6 acres of food plots. We did it all with ATV, sprayer, and the handheld broadcaster. And that was it. That's all we ever used to plant 6 acres, and we had beautiful plots back in the day. This is going back to 2002, 2003, 2004. We had so much more time and drive time. I used to say with those food plots, it'd take about 13 hours total, but that was 4 trips, 7 hours one way, back and forth to do all this. And when we came down to spray sometimes, we were down, even though we had to go a half hour back, get some water, then it still took us less than 3 hours to spray. So there were times we left at 7 in the morning, got down to Wisconsin at 2 in the afternoon, started spraying, left by 6 o'clock, and then got home at 1 in the morning. And we'd do that all in one day because we couldn't afford a hotel room to stay and get that done. So I hear a lot of people, well, a few acres of food plots. We don't have the resources for that. It doesn't take a lot of time, especially when you're using no-till options. You know, I had a 48 horsepower Kubota tractor back in the day, 500 hours that I put on that. And it was a lot of work because I'd have to change implements back and forth, cone-shaped broadcaster, 6-foot tiller, had a brush hog on it, front end loader, box blade, had all these attachments that I could put on and off, but every one of them was going back to the pole building, changing it, and even tilling. That was, what, an hour per acre, something like that. It took a long time when I was managing 8 acres to do all that. So I ended up, the last couple of years of owning that land and property in the UP of Michigan, I actually stopped using the tractor, tillage, and all that because it just took too much time for my busy schedule, and I could get the same type of quality plot. So we have that Packer Max, but I really want to point out, so much easier to use something like that. And when we're using buckwheat, you don't need a crimper, roller, all that kind of garbage. That's for big tractors, big toys. It's not a real effective method anyways. So this right here, using those ATV tires, in a pinch, we've just used the ATV tires, truck tires, car tires, tractor tires to smash down the buckwheat. And I'm not saying it's the easiest method. Again, it's like using a handheld broadcaster. There's better options like that PTO mounted broadcaster over there for fertilizer and big seeds, but you can get the job done. We prefer a cul-de-packer, even just a 4-footer. Makes life a lot easier, but you can get the job done. Now I'll switch over here to this chainsaw. There's so much work we've done out on the property. We started chipping away at this, a few bedding pockets per year, a few rabbit huts per year. And now we're up to about 40 different bedding pockets, up to 2 acres, some down to 1/8 of an acre, 1/4 acre, spread out through the entire property where we need the deer to bed and focus on the most. The rabbit huts are spread all over. Clearing our trails, chainsaw. We're going to use a chainsaw, but it's pretty inexpensive. This is a small chainsaw, something I started with a long time ago. I think it's about a 29, 30 cc. We use the bigger ones now that are more the 50 cc's. But regardless, even something small like this, which was actually a gift back in the day from Max. He owns a steel dealership over in the Thumb area, and a friend of ours. Really liked using this back in the day. It's what I had to use, but you don't need something real fancy even when it comes to a chainsaw. Now, I want to flip over real quick to Little Miss Jen. So with you, can you explain this? Obviously, we're using the Earthway. I said we put 7,000 pounds of seed through it a year. And don't let me forget to talk about our switchgrass and how we manage that, because you don't have to have that brush hog over there. But with the Earthway, we have it dialed down on that. Can you tell how we use that even with our seeds and pure wildlife blends?
So we have taken specific notes over the years on where we are going to put where you're going to have this opening for your seed. So switchgrass specifically is, I think it's 1.5.
It is 1.5.
Is what it is. Where your like fall power is going to be more like 4.5.
And buckwheat's more like 3.5, somewhere
Yeah,
on there.
so we have this all dialed in for you. So if you go to purewildlifeblends.com and you go to any of our seed blends, you'll see that we already have this dummy proof for you. We'll tell you exactly which one to use. However, keep in mind that your coverage all depends on how fast you walk and how fast you turn this to administer all your seed. So everyone's a little bit different. So just make sure that you're paying attention.
Yeah, we give you a broad reference right there, kind of a middle ground.
Right.
But it's pretty dummy proof though. I mean, it might be 4 1/4 versus 4.5, or 1.6 versus 1.4.
Right.
But it's going to be really close. And the cool thing is, the wider you spread, the faster it drops out. So if someone's walking at a moderate pace, you're not trying to hurry, you're just walking through the field, whether you're spreading wide or narrow, it dumps out the same amount over an acre. I hope that makes sense, because if you're spinning faster and you're opening the chute up more, it's going to drop more out, spread it further apart. Then if you're doing it more narrow, you're letting less out, but you have to do more rows. So it really equals out quite a bit. So that spreader has been a really important piece of everything we've done for years, and that's why we use the Earthway. The Earthway, we sell those, and that's why we try to dummy proof it for you. We don't make much money on those, but Earthway, We get a pallet at a time so that we can offer it as a convenience to you. It's pretty easy to use. And no, 7,000 pounds of seed in 1 year, I could expect that out of it, but I couldn't expect that the second year. I've probably gone through, heck, in the last 5 years, have we gone through 12 to 14 of those?
For sure.
And Earthway had a few bad design models. So we were able to complain enough to Earthway, got a hold of someone eventually that cared. And Jen and I talked to them a lot, and they brought back the OG version based on our feedback and a lot of other people. A lot of times they send these tester units to people, and people are just yes people, and they agree and say it's really nice when they don't actually use it in the field that much. We actually use them a lot. So we were able to tell them this is junk, and they brought back the OG version. So we will only sell the OG version or not at all. And we have all those settings for you for every one of our seed blends. Now getting back to switchgrass, I want to point out over the years we've done a lot of mowing, and really switchgrass establishment, you can mow more July, August the first year for weed competition, maybe a little bit earlier if you have to. You can mow June, July, August the following year, June, July, August the following year, June, July, this pattern over and over again. Eventually, the switchgrass will probably win out to a certain percentage of stand. You might get it at 80% pure stand. But those weeds erode as soon as you stop taking care of it. They start to diminish your value of your stand. So mowing's not a bad thing, especially taking out some of the woody debris. But bottom line is you can control all of that with chemical. Yeah, you might be shy to use chemical, but once you establish switchgrass in the first 2 to 3 years at the most with chemical and clean, I've found by personal observation over many, many years that you can let it go for a decade or more. So really, you're balancing all of this. Do you use the equipment, go in and mow over and over again for years, using those resources, using that fuel, using that equipment, spending that time to get an 80% stand, or do you use chemical in the first 2 years, establish a 100% stand that's good for a decade or more? You don't have to go back out, you don't have to spend that time. You have to balance everything, just like the soil erosion versus no-till and everything else. So we manage a lot. Literally total of 300 acres, and even our corn that we have Brandon from First Choice Food Plots come out here and plant for us. Even our corn, we manage everything over there with our liquid nitrogen and spraying onto the corn to maintain it, herbicide, everything on that corn. So we might not be planting the corn, but we're getting the field ready to plant the corn by spraying and controlling weeds. We're controlling weeds while it's growing, and then we're also spraying liquid nitrogen on for fertilizer out of that. And then we've spread a lot of nitrogen, urea, in the form of urea, out of this bag spreader through our corn too. It's a royal pain, especially when it's July and it's super hot and it's that time where you need to spread it, but it's something you can do. The bottom line again, 300 acres, 15 acres of plots that we actively manage and plant, another 7 acres of corn that we actually take care of and manage with this light equipment. The buckwheat no-till process, we're planting that during the summertime, then we're planting our fall crops into that. The chainsaw, the Packer Max, simply an ATV with a 25-gallon sprayer. We can use just that equipment to manage all that we do. Several acres of pollinators, 18 acres of switchgrass. The list goes on and on. We can use a pickup truck and that tank to get water to our water holes in most every location. That's why we have nice trails going back into them so we can actually fill them with water if needed. The bottom line is you don't need a lot of equipment to really get the job done, and I hope that helps you, because I think a lot of people see it as a daunting task. You're going to buy this acreage, you're going to have a big chunk, and you have to spend all this money on equipment. I've worked with clients that have had $80,000 to $100,000 setups for planting equipment that they've gotten rid of it all. And a lot of times it just sat in the barn. I had one client, his name's Jonathan, I'll just leave it at that, but he left that tractor in the barn for 2 years, and his Great Plains drill, he was too intimidated to use it, never did. And so eventually he sold everything and didn't need to have it anymore. But bottom line is there's so much you can do. And I always encourage you, if you're going to have 300 acres, or if you're going to have 80 acres or 40, do 40 acres worth of work if you have 40 acres. Don't do 40 acres worth of work if you have 300. And so a lot of times it boils down to you can get the work done with a lot lighter equipment and get the amount of work done that you need to accomplish so that you can have a great hunt this fall and a great property. Don't ever back up. Don't ever think that you have to have expensive equipment, thousands of dollars of roller crimpers and these fancy tractors and drills. You don't have to have all that to experience a great property and a great hunt this fall. Everyone, thanks for watching to the end of the video. I really want you to check out whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, Pure Wildlife Blends. There's so much we have to offer you. You know, if you never buy anything from us or hire us to come to your land, that's okay. We're still going to be putting out all this free content to try to help you out. I want to put a smile on your face. I want you to have a great hunt. But from our food plot seed blends to books to web classes to hiring us, we have lots of stuff to offer on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com and Pure Wildlife Blends. Make sure you check it out. The links are in the description.